Hello, welcome back to the channel. I have a bit of a special review for you today. I will be talking about Black Panther, which of course came out in 2018. So, as some of you know, I have been rewatching all of the MCU movies, and the other day I reached Black Panther. I actually only have one movie left because I watched these movies in a very weird order. The last movie I need to watch is Infinity War. Once I'm done with that, you can expect a video with maybe a ranking. But until then, let's talk about Black Panther. So, I saw this movie for the first time in theaters later in its theatrical run. It had a very long theatrical run, and I liked it, but it was so hyped up at that point, and there was a lot of negativity, because anytime a movie is that hyped up, there's a lot of negativity surrounding it as well. In some ways, it reminds me of what happened to Frozen. I think Frozen is a fantastic Disney movie, but it got so hyped up that it got to the point where people were like, ugh, Frozen. There's, of course, another layer with Black Panther, but I think a similar principle holds, which is that it got a lot of hype and a lot of attention, but I actually think that was well-deserved in the case of this movie. But I'll talk more about that and more of the cultural side of things later in the video. First, I'll talk about the movie. The first time I saw it, I liked it. The second time I saw it, I liked it a bit more. And now, the third time I've watched it, I think this is a seriously great movie. It's in among the top tier of MCU movies, even though I was looking at my rankings and it's around 14. That's because I think there are so many great movies in the MCU. But I think Chadwick Boseman's performance especially has grown on me. He's very subdued and different than other characters we've seen in the MCU. There's that one fantastic scene when he's on the ancestral plane for the second time when he's died, and he's speaking to his father and he lashes out and is very emotional, and that scene is very effective because of how restrained he's been throughout the rest of the film, and it builds up to this moment of learning and realization that his father maybe wasn't as perfect as he thought he was when he, grew up idolizing his father, who was his king, and realizes that no man is perfect, but he's gonna try and be better. I think that's a really great scene, probably the best scene in the movie. I love all of the scenes on the ancestral plane. I think Michael B. Jordan is great in this movie. Notably, I've heard some of my favorite critics, actually, who think he's bad in this movie, and I very strongly disagree with that. I think that his scene on the ancestral plane is great. I didn't realize, I guess, because I didn't really know who Sterling K. Brown was when this movie came out. And so when I watched it again, it was kind of a surprise to see Sterling K. Brown show up as Eric Killmonger's father. He's great in the movie, even though he's not in it much. That scene is fantastic. I really like the scenes on the ancestral plane. This movie does have a very strong sense of style. The world of Wakanda, I think, is very well fleshed out and well realized. I think it's an interesting world. I think it sets it apart from other Marvel movies because it's one of those ones that feels like it's not just New York, it's not just LA, they do something special with the world. There's Guardians of the Galaxy, which of course is in space, and Thor, and it's another one of those awesome worlds to get to explore within the MCU. Letitia Wright as Shuri is great. I think she's a great character. I think she's very funny, and I love her relationship with her brother. Their dynamic is entertaining, and I really buy into their relationship and their love for each other, as well as with their mother. In terms of problems, because this movie does have some problems, I wish that T'Challa had a harder time being a king and a warrior. If they had given him a shortcoming, something that he had to improved. And in a way there is, and that's the thing. I just wish they had gone further with it. I see where it is in terms of he's trying to carry on his father's legacy, and he realizes that he can't just do that. He needs to be better, and he needs to do things differently and realize where his father was wrong and where he can make things right. I think they could have gone much further with that by presenting him in a way where he was struggling as a king. But we never get to see him doing much as king of Wakanda. Everyone loves him, and then Eric shows up, and then he's dead. He does come to that realization, but I think that it could have been reached in a more effective way if they had given him more faults along the way, more shortcomings as a king. Then there's the fact that he does fall over the waterfall and die. I think it could have been more interesting with two possible changes. Either don't have that happen. I don't like that he's absent from the movie for so long, and especially since that moment, that event is such a important beat in his character arc, and we don't get to see him experiencing the fallout from it. When Shuri and his mother and Agent Ross show up and find him in the snow, and M'Baku is there, he doesn't, in that moment, he's had his realization. I think that if we had followed him in the aftermath of him falling off that waterfall, maybe instead of him being unconscious and put in the snow, maybe we see him come out of the river and find his way to M'Baku's tribe. Something more where we're following him instead of him being absent and then showing up having made that realization. And of course, the most talked about criticism, the third act is a bit weak. The final battle isn't as... it doesn't fit in with the rest of the movie. All of the fights on that waterfall, on that cliff, are really cool scenes. I think that's because that's more along the lines of fights that Ryan Coogler is used to directing, because he directed Creed, and he directs those very well. The final fight with the CGI rhinos and the CGI suits flipping around, it's not the best. That's one of the ways that it falls into some of the basic superhero trappings of the genre, but it doesn't bother me that much, just the ending is a bit weak compared to the rest of the movie. I like the heroes, I like the villains. I do wish we could have seen more of Andy Serkis as Claw. I think he's great as that character. It sucks because he's played Claw in the MCU and Snoke in Star Wars, and he gets the short end of the stick both times. I wish he could have had more of an opportunity to shine. But I do think this is a great movie. And it gets hate a lot online. And a lot of that comes from the fact that it was nominated for Best Picture and people don't think it should have been. I think it was deserving of that nomination, not because it's the best superhero movie of all time, because I don't think it is, but it is a great movie, and it was nominated partially because of the impact it had culturally, and people have a problem with that for some reason. I'll admit, I did. I was conflicted at first whether or not a movie should be nominated on the merits of the impact that it had on culture. And I've since come to the realization that trying to separate a movie from the impact that it had on culture is to separate a movie from the most important part of its success. Why do you make a movie if not to affect people, if not to make an impact on culture? Star Wars was nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars, so was Avatar. And, genre movies don't get nominated unless they have an impact the way that Star Wars, Avatar, and Black Panther did. All of those movies had a massive impact on culture and on movies. And so I think it's wrong to say that you should separate Black Panther from the impact that it had on American culture, because that's one of the best things about it. And that isn't separate from what the movie is. The movie is great because of the impact it had. Those two things can't be separate, and that's why I think it was deserving of that nomination and is deserving of that praise, because it's a special movie for what it did in impacting culture. That's part of what makes movies a great form of art. Its widespread impact on culture and change, creating change in a culture. And this movie certainly did that. And that shouldn't be taken out of the conversation when you're discussing the quality of this movie. But if you do want to separate it from those things, I do think it's a great movie, despite some of the flaws that I discussed earlier in this video, because it is a flawed movie. But I think its sense of style, its performances and characters, and yes, its cultural impact elevated above its mistakes. And I'm very excited for Black Panther 2, and I look forward to seeing T'Challa in the MCU. So thank you for tuning into this video where I talked about a little bit of an older movie, but I felt like I had something to say about it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Go ahead and subscribe. I do lots of movie news, trailer reactions, movie reviews, of course. Thank you for watching this video. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.